Welcome back to Mental Mike's Recovery Radio, where recovery meets discovery. I am Mental Mike, and this is episode 13. I mean the following with everything I have. You are not the same person who started this journey, not metaphorically, literally. Your brain has changed, new pathways have formed. The relationship you have with yourself, with your past, with your own emotions, is fundamentally different now. In my work with the unified flux model, I have always said that the first part of this program is about breaking free from the gravitational pull of addiction. But there are segments where everything shifts. This is where we stop surviving and start creating. The question I want to sit with you to discuss this week is no longer what is wrong with me. The question is, who am I becoming? Because the UFM teaches us that you are made of borrowed molecules, cells that are constantly renewing, constantly replacing themselves. The body that was addicted is already on its way out. What you are building right now, in this moment, is genuinely new. This week, we look at the biology of community and how genuine connection with others in recovery literally restores the brain chemicals that addiction depleted. We go deeper into Jung's map of healing, the four stages that move a person from confession all the way through to transformation. And we explore what it means to cross the threshold from recovery into what I call mastery. You are no longer just breaking old patterns, you are becoming what we call a Pathfinder. And today I want to introduce you to Jason. Jason's story is one that speaks directly to this moment of threshold, because Jason knows what it feels like to survive the first half, to do the hard, unglamorous work of just holding on, and then to arrive at a place where holding on is no longer enough, where something deeper begins to stir. His journey into conscious reconstruction, into asking who he was becoming rather than grieving who he had been, maps directly onto the work I have built into week 13 of the UFM. Jason crossed the threshold. And his story just might help you cross yours. So settle in, carry that question with you today. Who are you becoming? And let's go deeper together.
You know, week 13, it's so much more than just a number on a calendar. It is a huge milestone. It's a threshold moment. The fact that you're here right now speaks volumes about your commitment, your courage, and your deep down understanding that this whole process, it unfolds over time, layer by layer, revealing more and more of who you are always meant to be. I really want you to let this one soak in. You are not the same person who started this program 13 weeks ago. I mean that literally. Your brain has physically changed. You've forged brand new neural pathways. The relationship you have with yourself, with your emotions, with your own past, it is fundamentally different now. And this new foundation, that's what we're going to build on for the rest of our journey together. Okay, so keeping that transformation in mind, let's look at what this week is all about. Week 13 is a really pivotal transition. You are moving out of those early reactive stages where, frankly, survival was the only goal. Now you're stepping into a phase of conscious reconstruction, a time where you're not just breaking old destructive patterns, but you are actively, consciously building a new reality. So the second half of this program, it is not just more of the same. Not at all. Think of it like this. The first 12 weeks were all about breaking free from the gravitational pull of addiction. This next half, this is about building the escape velocity, the momentum you need to sustain your transformation for the rest of your life. This is where recovery really starts to look like mastery. To really kick off this new phase, we're going to introduce a foundational concept that might just change how you see everything, especially yourself. We're talking about the unified flux model. It's a completely new framework that helps us move beyond any of those lingering, nagging ideas of being flawed or permanently damaged. So let's talk about the unified flux model, or the UFM for short. What the UFM teaches us is that your body is in a constant state of renewal. You are, quite literally, made of borrowed molecules. Every single cell in your body is temporary. Now think about what that means. The body that was addicted, the cells that were damaged, they are already being replaced. They're already on their way out. And this right here, this shows the incredible shift in identity that the UFM offers us. The old story was that you were fixed, broken, defined by your past. But your new reality is that you are an evolving, creative system, a constant work in progress. You are not damaged goods. You are a dynamic, living creation. And this might be the most empowering realization you can have on this entire journey. You're not trying to recover some old version of you. No, this is about creation. The unified flux model helps us shift that fundamental question we ask ourselves from what's wrong with me to the much, much more powerful question, what am I becoming? Now, this act of creation, it doesn't happen in a vacuum, right? Which leads us directly to the power of community. As Mental Mike shows us, connection isn't just nice to have for moral support. It is a biological necessity that actively rewires your brain for healing. You were never, ever meant to do this alone. And this process is so tangible, you can actually see it in your brain's chemistry. When you really engage with a high-frequency sober community, you're not just getting accountability. You are restoring the balance of 3 absolutely key brain chemicals that addiction completely disrupted. So, first up is oxytocin, the bonding hormone. Addiction really wounds our ability to trust others and ourselves. But every single time you have a positive, supportive interaction in your community, every time you feel seen and heard without any judgment, your brain's oxytocin system literally begins to heal, and it starts to feel safe to connect again. Next up, dopamine, the motivation molecule. We know that substances hijack this system, leaving you feeling totally flat in early recovery. But celebrating milestones, sharing successes, just enjoying positive experiences with your community, all of that provides the natural dopamine hits that recalibrate your brain's entire reward system. And finally, there's vagal tone. I want you to think of the vagus nerve as your body's inner brake pedal. Addiction weakens it, leaving you feeling anxious and reactive all the time. But being in a calm, compassionate group setting literally strengthens this nerve, which increases your ability to self-regulate and stay resilient when stress hits. Okay, so we've covered the biological need for community. Now, let's turn our attention inward, to our inner world. This week, we're going to introduce the incredible work of Carl Jung. Think of it as a powerful map for navigating those unconscious patterns that have been driving so much of our behavior for so long. So Jung saw healing as a process with 4 pretty distinct stages. It all starts with confession, just bringing the truth out into the light. Then comes elucidation. That's understanding the why behind our patterns. That's followed by education, gaining new tools and new frameworks. And finally, transformation, where you integrate all of it into a new whole self. Now, one of Jung's most crucial concepts is what he called the shadow self. These are the parts of us that we've pushed down deep because we believe they're unacceptable, like our rage, our vulnerability, our neediness. So often, addiction is just the shadows screaming out, demanding to be seen. Real healing comes from consciously integrating these hidden parts, not from trying to destroy them. And that's really the work for this week. I want you to just sit with this question. What parts of yourself have you been hiding from? What qualities in other people trigger a really strong reaction in you? A lot of the time, that's a clue to what's living in your own shadow, just waiting to be acknowledged and healed. Okay, let's make a little shift here from the psychological to the physical. We're now going to explore the tangible, biological process of healing your body and your brain after the damage of addiction. This is where you get to become an active participant in your own reconstruction. It's pretty exciting stuff. This chart does a great job of showing why early recovery can feel so, flat or so volatile. Years of artificial stimulation from substances just severely deplete your brain's natural feel-good chemicals like dopamine and serotonin. As you can see, you're pretty much starting from a deep deficit. But here is the empowering part. You can rebuild these vital brain chemicals. This isn't just about willpower, it's about chemistry. Foods that are rich in tyrosine, like lean meats, help rebuild your dopamine. And foods with tryptophan, like turkey and nuts, give you the building blocks for serotonin. You can literally eat your way to a more stable mood. And here's another powerful tool: fasting. Now, this isn't about deprivation. When you fast, you actually activate a process called autophagy, which is basically your body's cellular cleanup crew. This amazing process clears out damaged cells, it repairs neural pathways, and it can even reset your dopamine sensitivity, making natural rewards feel pleasurable again. So, what does all of this lead to? It leads to a shift a shift from just recovery to real mastery. Over these next 13 weeks, you are learning the tools not only to sustain your own transformation, but to become what we call a Pathfinder, someone who can eventually help guide others on their own journey. You have officially crossed the threshold from survival to creation. The foundation has been set. The real, beautiful work of building your new self, that begins right now. So I'm going to leave you with this question to carry with you into the week. Who are you becoming?
When I first got sober, I honestly thought recovery was just surviving long enough not to overdose again. That was it. No big spiritual awakening, no purpose, no vision for the future. Just trying not to die. I'd already buried friends, flatlined twice myself, destroyed relationships, burned every bridge I had. By the time I finally got clean, I didn't even recognize myself anymore. That's why this podcast hit me so hard, because for the first time, somebody explained recovery like I wasn't permanently ruined. That mattered more than I can explain. The whole thing about being borrowed molecules living on borrowed time. Man, that stayed in my head for days. Because I've spent years identifying myself by my worst moments. Addict, failure, disappointment, criminal. Like those labels were permanent tattoos on my soul. But hearing that my body is literally replacing itself constantly, that I'm a dynamic system instead of a fixed broken object, something shifted inside me. It made me realize maybe I've been trying to recover an old version of myself that doesn't even exist anymore. Maybe recovery isn't about going backward. Maybe it's about creation. That line from the podcast changed me. What am I becoming? I never asked myself that before. When you're using hard drugs long enough, your whole life becomes reactive. Wake up sick, get money, get high, crash, repeat. You stop imagining a future entirely. The podcast said the first half of recovery is escaping addiction's gravity. That's exactly what it feels like clawing your way out of a black hole. And now, for the first time, I actually feel little pieces of myself coming back online. Not perfectly, not all at once, but enough to notice. The part about community being biological really hit me too. I used to think meetings were fake, just people sitting around repeating slogans. But now I understand something different is happening there. The first time I shared honestly in a room and nobody judged me, I swear my nervous system didn't even know how to process it. I was waiting for rejection, waiting for humiliation. Instead, people nodded like they understood me. That changed something chemically inside me. The podcast explained that too. Oxytocin, dopamine, vagal tone. It made recovery feel scientific instead of mystical. Like maybe my brain isn't evil. Maybe it's injured. Maybe it can heal. That gave me hope. And honestly, hope is dangerous when you've been hopeless a long time. Because suddenly you have something to lose again. The shadow work part hit me hard too. Especially the idea that addiction is sometimes the shadow screaming to be seen. That felt true immediately. I buried anger my whole life. Buried fear too. My dad taught me emotions made you weak. So I learned how to numb instead. Drugs became emotional anesthesia. Now in recovery, all that stuff is surfacing again, and some days it scares the hell out of me. But at least now I understand what's happening. I'm not going crazy. I'm becoming conscious. That's different. And maybe the biggest thing this podcast gave me was permission to stop seeing myself as damaged goods. Because if I'm constantly changing, if my brain can rebuild, if my nervous system can heal, then maybe my future isn't sentenced to look like my past. That possibility alone keeps me going right now. For the first time since I was a kid. I'm starting to wonder who I could actually become if I stopped living, like survival was the only thing life had to offer.
If something in this conversation stood out to you, don't ignore that. That's usually where the work begins. Recovery isn't about trying harder. It's about understanding what's actually happening and learning how to respond differently over time. If you're ready to take the next step, you can find resources, guidance, and support at soulrecoveryhub.com. Take what you heard today, sit with it, and keep moving forward. Copyright 2026, Mental Mike, all rights reserved.